Elizabeth I's reluctance to bathe. One of the most surprising and shocking hygiene habits of Queen Elizabeth I was her reluctance to bathe. In an era where bathing was not seen as a necessity, many royal figures, including Elizabeth, often went long periods without a proper bath. Bathing, during the Tudor period, was often considered unnecessary and even harmful to the body. Many people believed that water could open the pores and make the body susceptible to disease. Queen Elizabeth I, much like other monarchs of her time, avoided bathing regularly. In fact, she reportedly bathed only once in her life, and even then, it was out of necessity rather than a desire for cleanliness. She believed that frequent bathing could make her ill, and as a result, she would go for months or even years without immersing herself in water. This lack of bathing was not limited to the Queen alone. Her court followed similar practices, with the belief that perfumes, powders, and scented oils could mask body odors and cover the lack of cleanliness. The Queen herself would often use these substances to create the illusion of cleanliness, as well as to mask the natural sin of her unwashed body. Her refusal to bathe regularly was partly due to the medieval belief that water was dangerous, especially cold water. Elizabeth's reluctance was also likely a result of the time-consuming and elaborate process of bathing, which involved heating large amounts of water and filling large tubs. It was not a process that was easily done on a regular basis, particularly for a queen with so many responsibilities and limited time for personal care. Despite her lack of bathing, Elizabeth remained an iconic figure of beauty in her time, with her white skin and flawless complexion admired by many. However, her pristine image was often a result of makeup and powders rather than natural cleanliness, creating a facade of perfection that hid the truth about her hygiene habits. Why did Elizabeth I, despite her status as a powerful queen, refuse to bathe regularly? Was it the cultural beliefs of her time? Or did she have deeper fears about cleanliness and health? What do you think? Was Elizabeth's reluctance to bathe a product of the era's beliefs, or was it a personal choice rooted in fear or discomfort? Share your thoughts in the comments. The use of lead-based makeup, masking imperfections with poison. Queen Elizabeth I's iconic pale complexion was one of her most defining features, and she worked tirelessly to maintain the appearance of flawless, youthful skin. However, the beauty regime she followed to achieve this look was not without its dangers. Elizabeth was a heavy user of makeup, and one of the most dangerous substances she used was lead-based white powder, known as Venetian ceruse. Venetian ceruse was a cosmetic product made from lead, and it was commonly used by aristocratic women during the Tudor era to achieve a pale, porcelain-like complexion. Elizabeth I was no exception to this trend. She would apply thick layers of this toxic substance to her face to cover any blemishes and to create the desired effect of flawless, alabaster skin. While this lead-based makeup may have achieved the desired aesthetic effect, it came with severe health risks. Lead is a toxic substance, and prolonged exposure can cause poisoning, resulting in symptoms such as headaches, vomiting, and even death. The lead-based cosmetics that Elizabeth used would have seeped into her skin, and over time, could have caused significant harm to her health. In addition to lead, Elizabeth also used other harmful substances in her cosmetics. For example, she applied egg whites to her face to tighten and firm her skin, and she used various herbal concoctions that may have been ineffective or even harmful. Elizabeth's obsession with maintaining a youthful appearance through toxic and potentially dangerous beauty products was typical of the time, but it also speaks to the length she went to maintain her public image, even at the cost of her own health. While Elizabeth's use of lead-based makeup may have contributed to her public image as a beautiful queen, it likely also had long-term health consequences that may have affected her health later in life. Why did Elizabeth I continue to use toxic lead-based makeup despite the dangers it posed to her health? Was her vanity and obsession with beauty worth the risk? What do you think? Could Elizabeth have maintained her image without the use of toxic cosmetics, or was it the only way for her to adhere to the beauty standards of her time? Share your thoughts in the comments. Her teeth, a royal smile covered in decay. Despite her status as one of the most powerful monarchs in history, Queen Elizabeth I's teeth were far from the flawless, pristine smile one might expect of a royal figure. Her dental hygiene, like much of her personal care, was lacking, and her teeth were in a state of severe decay by the time she reached adulthood. During the Tudor period, dental care was rudimentary at best, and the knowledge of oral hygiene that we take for granted today did not exist. There were no toothbrushes, no toothpaste, and certainly no dental floss. The royal court had little understanding of the importance of dental hygiene, and as a result, Elizabeth's teeth suffered. As she aged, Elizabeth I's teeth became increasingly decayed, with many of them turning black and falling out. It is believed that the Queen's teeth may have decayed as a result of her diet, which was rich in sugar and sweets, both of which were damaging to teeth. Additionally, her tendency to avoid bathing and the lack of regular cleaning methods contributed to the poor condition of her teeth. Despite the deterioration of her teeth, Elizabeth's public image remained largely intact. She would cover her teeth with a closed smile and avoid speaking too much in public to hide the damage. Court portraits of Elizabeth also show her with her mouth closed or her lips slightly pursed, a deliberate attempt to conceal her dental issues. Her dental problems, which were likely exacerbated by her reliance on sugary foods, were a stark contrast to her image as a queen of beauty and power. Yet, Elizabeth's appearance was often maintained through the use of makeup and carefully planned public appearances, while the reality of her personal hygiene habits remained hidden from the public eye. Why did Elizabeth I, despite her wealth and power, allow her teeth to decay so badly? Was it a lack of awareness, or was it simply a matter of avoiding the appearance of weakness? What do you think? Could Elizabeth have sought better dental care, or was it the norm for royalty at the time to neglect such issues? Share your thoughts in the comments. The Queen's unkempt hair and lack of scalp hygiene. Another area where Queen Elizabeth I's hygiene practices fell short was in her hair care. Despite being the Queen, Elizabeth's hair was often unkempt and poorly maintained. Elizabeth I was known for her red hair, which was one of her most iconic features. However, keeping her hair in good condition was difficult due to the lack of proper hygiene practices of the time. Elizabeth's hair was often styled in intricate wigs and elaborate updos, but beneath these layers of hairpieces, her natural hair was not always well cared for. Royalty during this period often used a variety of oils and powders to disguise the lack of proper washing and care, and Elizabeth was no different. Wigs were often used to cover up the dirty, greasy hair that was commonplace in the royal court. Moreover, Elizabeth's fear of illness and her reluctance to bathe regularly also contributed to her poor scalp hygiene. Long periods without washing her hair meant that dirt, oil, and natural hair products built up on her scalp, leading to dandruff, itching, and discomfort. Though her wigs and hairstyles were carefully crafted for public appearances, the reality of her unwashed hair was likely far less glamorous. Elizabeth's obsession with her public image, combined with the lack of understanding of proper hygiene practices, meant that her hair, though carefully styled, was not properly cleaned or cared for in the ways we would expect today. This lack of attention to personal care likely added to the discomfort she experienced later in life. Why did Elizabeth I neglect her natural hair, despite her wealth and status? Was it a matter of practicality, or was it tied to the broader cultural norms of the time? What do you think? Could Elizabeth have taken better care of her hair, or was it simply part of the norms of her reign? Share your thoughts in the comments. Queen Elizabeth I, despite her immense power and influence, was not immune to the poor hygiene practices of her time. From her reluctance to bathe regularly to her use of toxic cosmetics and lack of proper dental care, Elizabeth's personal hygiene was a stark contrast to the public image she projected as the Virgin Queen. Yet, despite these shortcomings, Elizabeth's legacy as one of the most successful and beloved monarchs in history remains intact. Her story serves as a reminder of how hygiene practices have evolved over time, and how even the most powerful figures were sometimes victims of their society's limited understanding of health and cleanliness. By exploring the hygiene habits of Queen Elizabeth I, we gain a deeper understanding of the challenges faced by historical figures in maintaining their health and well-being.